Good morning, my creative friends, and welcome to Painting in Your PJs with Dr. Manette Riordan. I am Manette. I am in my PJs. Super excited to be here with all of you this morning and still getting over a little bit of this head congestion. So I feel good, but I might sound a little funky or you'll hear me clearing my throat quite a bit. And right now on the show, the royal we, me, is working on a series of whimsical folk art inspired animals. And I've been up for a while this morning and spent some time playing with my sweet little spirit bear here. I'm not sure that it's done, but I'm going to set it aside for now and come back a little bit later to see if it needs anything added. I may still have some work to do on some of the flowers, but I really love the little bear and the face on the bear, and it feels like it's coming along. So I've got some ideas about or this what I want to say is that this bear sparks some ideas excuse me, about how do I incorporate symbols or things that feel meaningful. How do I add that element of uniqueness that makes my art really stand out? So the intention behind painting all of these sweet animals is to find my voice, to find my style, and to connect with what it is that matters to me, right? Those are some of the questions that are on my mind. I might need to get some gesso out and whiten up that moon a little bit there on the bear. And I was thinking about that because I got this fun new deck in the mail yesterday of woman runes. And these were created, you can find them at bridgetsgrove.com. And I really love this set of runes that was originally created by a woman named Shekinah Mountain Water, who was one of the first women really to talk about the goddess and goddess circles. And I don't know much about her, but this other woman, Molly, found these symbols many, many years later and has kind of revived them and revived this deck. And I really loved all these symbols. Good morning, Tori. Thank you. And as I was looking through all of these wonderful different symbols, it reminded me how important it is to me that my art is not just pretty, but that my art also has meaning, right? And so I didn't intentionally pick the crescent moon, but I looked at the bear and I thought, what does it need? And I'm like, oh, it needs a little crescent moon on its forehead. And the crescent moon here, it says, is about the ritual, divination, and the door to the unconscious. And so much of my art is intuitive and about exploring what's below the surface, getting into and connected to my own unconscious knowing. So I started thinking about how could I bring that in more? And I started to think about, okay, well, at that point, he had most of his symbols on him already. Looking for my green here, and the floral patterns. But it made me think about, as I'm exploring this idea of, what's my unique style and voice, how important it is to me to incorporate the spiritual, some of those elements. The animals themselves represent the connection to nature, which is so important to me and my life. And I kept, sort of thinking about what would I do differently next time. And I don't know that I have the answer, but it's part of the curiosity and the question that I want to explore. And like I said, I'm not sure that he's finished. I think I may want to just still brighten some of this up a little bit, but I am going to set him aside for now, probably put him up on my bookshelf and look at him for a while, which is what I normally do with my paintings. And I think it's important to not rush to finish something, but to give it time to rest. Give me time to sort of connect with the visuals of it. And in the doing of that, it tells me what's next. And if I don't have time to paint, I'll often go stick a sticky note with the, oh, it needs more of this or it needs more of that. And I'll stick a sticky note on the painting so that when I have time to come back to it, then I remember what it was that I wanted to change. But he's super cute. I'm pretty happy with him. Again, I feel like I'm not quite where I want to get to with this, but it's a great exploration. It's a step simpler than the horse was I showed the other day, but I also am looking at the style of the owl, wondering how can I paint in that more painterly style a little bit as well. So it feels like this is almost one piece of voice and direction, and there are others, waiting to be explored, but loving where this is at right now. So, gonna set that aside. And I can't remember if I shared, but one of the things that I've been doing is having a lot of fun playing with AI. I have a very specific prompt that I use. My husband and I love the tool Midjourney. They finally have their own app, midjourney.com. And I have been using this particular prompt to help with designs and composition. They never end up looking like exactly like the original. I don't know what I did with the picture of the bear, but one of the things I wanted to explore was a series of birds, of whimsical spirit birds. And the thing with AI is sometimes you do faces and you get three eyes, or I did one of a raven and it had three legs on the raven. Well, none of that matters, right? I'm sort of looking for sort of ideas and composition. But what I loved was the tail, this sort of painterly style, the bigger flowers around. So I'm going to start with this image and see where it takes me. And in this case, I even want to use the palette that's here because it's a lot more reds and oranges. I've been leaning into more of the pinks and purples. So there's some different colors to play with here. So I already painted my background with a bright turquoise blue to start with. We'll see if that blue sticks. I've got a piece of chalk paper, which I love. It's like carbon copy paper, but it's white. Either white or black would work well on this. And I am going to get this birdie down onto my image. Is a little bit bigger than my canvas, which is fine, and see what I can do with this birdie. And I also want to think about this idea of how can I pull symbols into this, right? How can I take something digitally created, make it more my own, more painterly? I'm just going to take a sneak peek, make sure I can see that, getting it going in the right direction. I love this chalk paper. And I think I shared on here that I recently signed up and I need to get in there and take some more classes for Ali Kay's fresh paint community because I loved her painting style and in particular her brush strokes. And she traces all of her image. She always has kind of a starting image. And I loved her philosophy around it because, people come into her community or into my community and they say, oh, but that's cheating to not draw it. And her philosophy is, I care about the painting, not the drawing. I'm here for the painting, and I want to get to the painting as fast as I can and not spend time trying to get things perfectly drawn. And if you take a look at her art, Alikay, Fresh Paint, and she has her paint week coming up next week, which it's either free or $10 or something like that. It's not very much. And there's a pumpkin painting and I think a flower painting, and I can't wait to play along. That eye is way too big, but I like the idea of a big eye. And I have been tracing animal templates since I started painting a decade ago, and she made me feel better about that it's not cheating, it's just a different way to get that base image onto the page. And I think it takes a lot of the fear of I can't draw out of our creative practice. And so if that's something you've been telling yourself, oh, I could never paint like Manette does, well, I use this technique a lot. Yes, I can draw. I actually like to draw, and I will draw in my journal. But when it comes to creating paintings like this, like Ali Kay, I want to get to the painting. When I do big paintings, I use a projector and my computer, and I actually project the image onto my canvas so I get the sizing and the proportions right. And it's made such a difference in my painting practice. So I encourage you, if there's something you want to try to create, don't be afraid to use cheats like this. I remember as a kid, my mom took beautiful landscape photographs and used her own photographs and would use her slide projector and get those on to canvas. So it's a technique I've known about watching my mom do it when she was in her wonderful landscape painting phase, Texas landscapes especially, many, many moons ago. Okay, I'm not going to put all the flowers in. All right, so now we have our image. Oh, great. I'm so glad, Tori. She's such a good teacher, and I know how much you love to paint. And she has a really unique style and approach. Let's see, we didn't get his. So again, I got the base designs down. And then I can come in and just add some of those details by hand. And I want to get my base layers of color down as well. You can see that chalk paper definitely leaves a lot of white around, but it wipes right off, especially with a baby wipe. So now I want to work on my palette, and even the palette can have significance and meaning. Sometimes it's really just about the palette that we enjoy, but sometimes those colors also evoke meaning. And I have noticed, if you look through my paintings or look around my house, I've been making an effort to expand my palette. But what I love are blues and greens. So a lot of my paintings end up having blue and green backgrounds because of that love. And so this one, because it has these reds and oranges, is going to be a little bit of a stretch for me. So I'm going to start by just getting some base colors down. And I do think I want to do a little color mixing. I think this is probably clean enough, but it makes it hard to see the palette. I should have grabbed another one of these. All right, so I'm just going to mix my paint right here on my palette. Seem to be like extra glary this morning. And I get torn between either you get the glare or the image is dark because this is shiny. All right, so I love the different reds. I'm thinking, okay, what I'm going to do, and one of the things that Ali Kay does, which I think is really fascinating, is, she literally gives you the formulas for the color mixing that she does. So this is an alizarin crimson, and I'm going to do it right here on this page because I want to see. An alizarin crimson is a really beautiful red, but it's got a little bit of blue in it. It's a little on the pinky side, and one of the things I'm drawn to in this palette are the warmth of the colors. There's a touch of fall in the colors, and so I'm feeling that fall energy right now. So I am going to add just a tiny bit of that crimson. I'm going to need a variety of different oranges. So that feels like a really nice orange. That was kind of equal parts of the crimson. That's almost like a really burnt orange. But what happens, can I warm this up just a little bit? So a lot of crimson and just the tiniest bit of this, and I love this yellow, this Hansa yellow opaque. And all of a sudden I get a much warmer red. It's hard to see the distinction on the screen, but I can tell I've just warmed it up the tiniest bit. So let's go ahead and come in here. Plus the color is going to change as soon as I put it over the top of this blue. It's going to change even more. And I like to paint my background first. This one I did not do an under painting on, but I thought about doing an under. It actually has an old painting of a hummingbird underneath it, then a layer of gesso, then this new painting. So you can see that's pretty dark on there. There is a lot of that blue showing through underneath, which is okay. And I have a couple of solutions I could try for that. I could paint the bird with gesso first, but because this is my underlayer, I'm okay with having some of these darker colors. And let's see. We want to get some of this red. I'm noticing how some of this same red is kind of in the center of the flower. And my sense is I want this one to be a little more painterly, less Poscas, more paint, and that it's going to take a lot of layers and really brightening things up. Tori, have you gone up into the park to see the leaves changing? It's so beautiful up there now. We took a client who was here for a long weekend to do some work with me. We took her up there on Monday, and I was surprised how much the trees were changing already. So starting to lay in some of those darker colors. We can come in and start to build up some of these different shades of orange. And again, because I'm starting with this turquoise color underneath, it's definitely going to have an impact. We're going to get some of that yellow in there, and you'll see that the yellow in particular is going to turn a little bit greeny on me. Oh, fantastic. Good. Awesome. Yeah, I tried to get us a reservation to get up to Bear Lake, but of course they were all sold out until late in the day, or all filled until late in the day. So we ended up going up the old Fall River Road, which was spectacular. Thank goodness Brad was driving. I don't think I would drive up Fall River Road, but it was really beautiful. I don't think we'd ever been up there in the fall. So again, just starting to layer in the color, noticing, that definitely those colors are pretty dark. Makes me wonder if I want to come back in here and add some white, but I think I'm just going to keep going and we're going to see where we get to. It feels somewhere between like, yeah, agreed. Yeah, you have to look weeks out. Um, it's so beautiful up there. I have such fond memories of being there as a kid. I think I'm going to have a lot of fun just seeing how many layers can I add to this. But it's kind of a definitely a funky little bit of a bird. Feels a little turkey-like, maybe a little whimsical. Definitely get that little bit of sort of peacocky, turkey energy going on there. So I noticed this because it's AI generated and it's not thinking about color theory. You notice there's a lot of same color blues in the bird as the background. Well, I want to darken those blues up, but I want it to still be in the same family. So I'm going to add a little bit of my, they call this teal, the golden teal, to this phthalo blue here and see what kind of magic we can make. And when I'm looking to create paintings that have meaning, sometimes it's simply the intentionality of it, right? Sometimes it's simply taking the time to catch my breath, taking the time to acknowledge the gift of being here, that this is sacred time for me. One of the things that came up in our community call, so I think I hinted that it was coming, but I don't think I've announced that we just opened recently a wonderful new community. I'm so excited about it, called the Sisterhood of Wisdom and Wonder. We had our first live call this week. And the topic came up of morning routines, which I think is such a powerful topic because I can tell you that having a sacred, spiritual, religious, mindful, calm, whatever you want to call it, way of starting your day gets you going on the right foot. And for me, it's also this, I mean, these painting in your PJ series are part of my own spiritual or consistent creative practice, and giving myself permission to play first in the mornings. And I started this, probably we moved 2 years ago. So I would say 5 or 7 years ago that I have a very consistent morning routine. So now we have this very dark birdie and I'm loving that dark blue. So I'm probably going to darken up some of the blues down here to match. And everything in my life changed, got better, shifted. My work and my business changed because I gave myself time to prioritize my interest, my needs. And when people talk about, well, how do I find my voice? How do I find my style? Like, it's consistency and practice, right? It's not about any kind of magic. It's not about having talent. It's about committing to showing up to the page or the canvas every day in a spirit of curiosity and discovery, paying attention to what emerges. Taking time to mix your own colors, to play with palettes, to explore. And I think it's also useful to ask yourself, what do you want out of your creative practice, right? So some people just want to play. Some people want to make work to sell. Some people want to use art for self-discovery like I do. That's so much of what my work is about meeting myself on the page. And we had a great conversation in my Creative Renaissance, my year-long group coaching program, which is my more intense program that really is all about helping women find their purpose and connect to themselves in a different way to figure out, what's next and what your dreams are. We had a call about commitment yesterday, about what are we really committed to. One of my first business coaches ever, over 20 years ago, he said, "Show me your checkbook and I'll show you what you value." And it was so true. If you look at what are the things that you spend your time, your money, and your energy on, you're showing what you value, which may not be what you are saying out loud that you want. It may be that you're stuck in habits and routines. And there's no judgment around any of this. It's all just about noticing, right? If you say you want to make art and then you aren't actually making art, what's happening? Are you letting other people's needs and priorities take precedence? Are you willing to put some boundaries around your time? And that was the lesson that I had to learn, because I had a bad habit of getting up in the morning first thing and going straight to work with my coffee and putting in an hour or so of work before, I had to get kids up and ready to go to school. And nobody was telling me to do this. There was still some yellow in there. That's okay. Um, it was, my schedule has been of my own design and making. I'm trying to blend those a little bit better. We're getting something funky happening here, but not quite what I wanted. But I kind of like pulling some of that paint back. That's kind of interesting. Everything is an experiment. And I wasn't choosing me. I wasn't prioritizing me or my needs, right? I was putting everything else ahead of that. And I was standing in the middle of my I had a big room. It was like a second living room that I took over for my office and my studio. It was half office, half studio. All right, this is kind of interesting. I'm not sure what it's doing. Just trying to push some of that blue back, and I'm noticing that I'm getting some of those fun water drops on there. I was standing looking at my easel. It was the middle of the afternoon, and I was arguing with myself about, taking a break from work and working on the canvas that was on the easel. And the question popped into my head, what if I put art at the center of everything? And that question was a game changer. It wasn't that I sort of instantly changed everything that I was doing or how I was doing it or instantly, committed to art. I've learned along my journey that I make art for me, not I'm not interested in building a career as a artist who sells art. It's a very different type of business. And I love teaching too much. I think I'd be bored to tears down here in my studio all the time without people. Okay, something's happening here that's starting to feel a little magic. I'm just playing with paint, wanting to bring in some of those darks around the bottom and lighten it up as we go. But what I started doing was getting up and going straight to my art space instead of to my computer in the mornings, or not sitting surfing on my phone in the mornings, but going straight to the page to write or to a canvas to paint or an art journal, maybe to an oracle card or some meditation. But I slowly started to cultivate this morning routine. And I don't do the same thing every morning. I give myself permission to change it up and do what feels fun in the moment. I think that eye needs to be a little bit higher on his head there. But it's how I started to explore this idea of what makes making art meaningful to me. Why am I doing this? Why am I here? All right, I'm going to put a layer of white down on these big flowers so that I can get those colors really vibrant and popping. I'm liking the muted colors of the bird, but I'm going to want these colors down here, I think, to pop a little bit more. I said white minute. And in that process, I really started to explore connecting my sacred practice with my painting practice. I often will write on a page or a canvas before I paint it. I became a lot better at letting go of outcomes and staying connected to the process, which I talk a lot about. I learned how to make art that was both meaningful and pretty. And sometimes it wasn't pretty, but it was really meaningful. And I took a lot of classes and I studied and I drew and I tried lots of different things. And then I just reached a point where I didn't need to keep taking classes, although I love creating in community. But I was signing up for classes and then not completing them. I'm like, okay, what's that about? There's the joy of just, buying classes. I don't know why it's so fun, but it really is. But when I really get honest with myself, I know my style. I know what I want to communicate. I know what I want to explore. And a lot of it had to do with self trust. Remember, my painting practice is for me. I'm not making art to sell. It's fun when it sells, but it's not a priority for me. And so I also had to realize that if I'm doing this just for me, then any classes I take need to help me get better at what I already love to do. It's easy to get caught up. Like right now, I would love to. I'm going to have to do a little work in here. I think I would love to learn more about stamp carving, and I'm very intrigued by the idea of paper making. But I know if I go down a paper making rabbit hole, I might not come back out. And I don't need another distraction. I've committed, especially this fall, to working on my painting. So I did sign up for Ali Kay's community because I wanted to learn the technique. And one of the things I've learned was that her technique is really hard. Not sure that I love the technique, although I love the effects of it. It really stretched me as an artist. It wasn't fun, it was challenging in all the best ways. And I also learned so much about color mixing from her, too. Okay, I'm liking where this is going. I'm just about at that point where I need to walk away, let it dry a little bit. Okay, this brush is pretty ratty. And then see where it takes me. This is going to be a fun one to continue to play with and explore. Definitely wanting to brighten up some of these colors. And as we were talking about commitment in our Creative Renaissance class, one of the other topics of conversation was around what Simon Sinek calls your big why. Like really understanding, why do you want to paint? Why does this matter? What's the goal here? What's the purpose behind all of that? And those are great questions to ask yourself. If you're saying that you want to make art and you're not actually making time to do that, really explore why you want to make art. Why does it matter? When our why is big enough and profound enough and meaningful enough, we will figure out how to make it happen. We will get out of our comfort zone and try the hard things. Making art, kind of like building business, is one of those things that requires us to grow personally. Okay, it's way too orangey there. This is actually the part of the painting that I love best, where I'm just putting color down. I enjoy kind of the messy middle piece where I'm not attached yet, where it still feels like a fun exploration and there's a curiosity about where is this going to take me. I'm still in that stage where if I don't love it, I just get to paint the whole thing over. But it feels like a good start and a good place to stop because the paint is still wet, and what I'm wanting to do is just keep going. And if I do that, I'm going to end up with some mud. So I'm going to take a pause here. And I hope you have an amazing weekend. Thank you for watching me paint. Thank you for listening to my rambles. If you haven't been to our website, I want to encourage you to check out our brand new membership. I'll put a link in the description of the video to our landing page for the Sisterhood of Wisdom and Wonder. We're having a grand opening special right now. I'll say more about that next week, and an opportunity to join me for some live Q&A calls. Loving just noticing the difference, noticing the similarities, loving that they're very different colors. This one was, the bear was so much fun to create. Every single piece of this felt joyful. And yet I'm still wanting to explore somehow a more painterly style. So I've got my work cut out for me, but it's work that I love. It's work that's going to stretch me. And I don't know where it's going to take me, but I'm excited. So go check out the Sisterhood of Wisdom and Wonder if you're looking for some community support around creative expression. It's specifically designed for women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s who are experiencing all the many different midlife transitions and wondering, where to go from here. It brings up a lot of questions about legacy, contribution, value, and identity. And I love supporting women to use art to answer those questions. Have an amazing weekend, my friends. I look forward to seeing you all next Tuesday, 7 a.m. Mountain Time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Happy painting. Bye bye.